Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth or third Final Fantasy Wiki podcast. I don't really know what we're up to. It doesn't really matter. This is the Final Fantasy Wiki brought to you by Fandom, powered by Wikia, powered by Final Fantasy Wiki, powered by you, the listeners. And my name is Eric Fuchs, also known as BlueHighwind. I will be your host because right now we have the latest Final Fantasy XIV expansion that came out 2 weeks ago, known as Stormblood. Huh. Anyway, with me tonight are these four people.
Catuse, also known as Alufa Bacchus of Goblin.
Okay.
Okay, Hexedmagica, character name Cecilia Cominos on Goblin as well.
Okay.
Yuanchosaan, also known as EA Calendar, also of Goblin.
8-Bit Black Mage, also Evan Tavien on, you guessed it, Goblin. The best server.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you might have noticed that I have not given my character name because I actually don't have a character name because I am the one person here who does not play Final Fantasy XIV because I don't play MMOs. But all of
And
you...
you're Scrum.
I am Scrum, yeah. I am a worthless human being. All of you, though, you have been playing Final Fantasy XIV for a while. Have you all been playing since the most recent recreation when the world was destroyed by Bahamut, or did you come on back in the terrible dark days?
Okay, so I don't think any of us played during 1.0
Thankfully.
at all.
Yeah, I think I joined in 2.1, so 8-Bit probably joined in 2.0 then?
Yeah.
I joined in 2.2 and yeah, that sounds right.
And
So
then
we're kind of
in 2.5.
We're not like the hardcore people who stuck around, in the hell days, but we've seen this
Some
game.
shit.
Yeah,
Wait.
we've seen this game.
We've seen what was 3.1 like.
You
Those were
said
not
2.5. What are we up to? I thought we were up to like 2.4 or something.
No, we're up to
4.0.
4.0.
We're up to 4.0. Okay, so since the most recent recreation, they've just been counting new numbers. So we've had Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. We've had Final Fantasy XIV. What was the last expansion?
Heaven's Ward,
Heaven's Ward.
and then Stormspot. Yeah.
Storm's Blood. Okay. So, in case you don't know, Final Fantasy XIV, in its original beta, I guess now beta version, was a terrible disaster thanks to a certain thing called Crystal Tools, or the White Engine, which was Square Enix's engine back in the old PlayStation 3 days, which was just terrible. But since then, they've gotten a new director. It was a clusterfuck. Clusterfuck of the most classic dimensions. But since then, Final Fantasy XIV has had a beautiful rebirth, and actually Stormblood has gotten very good reviews. What did IGN give it? A 9.2.
9.2?
9.2. So, what does everyone think of the new expansion? Just real fast.
Okay, apart from shitty launch issues, it's incredibly good.
I think 8-Bit and I came to the conclusion that everything about the expansion is great except for the classes we play.
Yeah. So overall, the writing has definitely. This is the best iteration of the story. The writing. I think people are generally happy with the new instances. So macro-wise, it's great.
I largely agree with the others, though I feel like the community of the game has gotten worse, though that might just be my perception.
Oh. Okay. Why don't we start with new locations? What locations have been added to this world? If you can tell me anything.
Yeah, so we've gone to actually 2 new places with this expansion. The first one is the places in Alamigo, which has been hinted at throughout the story. The Garlean Empire had taken over this area, and you have a lot of refugees in the game, so there's been an ongoing undercurrent, essentially, of when are we going to free the Alamegans. The other place that we've also gone to is Doma, which is mostly based on Japan, but quite refreshingly, there's a lot of elements of other parts of East and Southeast Asian countries, mostly Taiwan, China, and Vietnam.
What are those places? I know the Garlean Empire. They're kind of my cool dudes. I like them. I root for them because they have cool hats. But have those places been in the game before? Have they been like relevant to the story in any way?
They've been relevant to the story, but they haven't been in the game yet.
People from them have been relevant to the story.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been
Refugees.
spoken about for like the last 4 years or so in game. So
They have
we've been
appeared,
waiting a while to see them.
they've been appearing
We were
in myth
looking
and
forward to
legend,
Yes.
Effectively, yeah.
Yes.
effectively. So these new dungeons, how are they?
Well, firstly, the first dungeon in Stormblood is essentially a whole plot reference to the ship graveyard from Final Fantasy V. There is a lot of references to Final Fantasy V in Stormblood. Also, the new raid in Omega is some dope-ass shit. It's just excellent.
People who like 6 as well. The Garlean Empire, you may have known, is partially based off of the Empire in FF6, so they continue that. So if you're a fan of those 2 old school games, you will like.
Yep, we even have one of the new major secondary characters is named after Cyan's son, and his dad is named the Japanese version of his dad's name, and of course they're in Doma.
Okay, I heard that there was a Final Fantasy XII edition, something in Evil East. Is that made live yet?
Soon.
That has not happened yet, but it's going to be soon, TM.
So we've wasted everyone's time by doing this podcast right now instead of talking about what anyone wants to hear about, right?
Which is Return to Evilist.
Hey, unless you want to delay it 3 months, which I don't think is
No.
practical.
No, let's not.
I think they would probably delay it by more than 3 months if this turns into a repeat of Heavensward, but that's fine.
Oh, God. Please, no half year without patches.
Wait, there have been half
Please,
years
no more
without
never
patches?
Yes.
I thought
No,
it was...
after the
No, I thought...
So after the Heavensward release, they had the entire development team take a vacation, which turned into us not getting patches for Heavensward for about 5 months.
Huh. Was that really bad? Are there any glitches in this newest update? Everything's... What
Yeah,
does that
it
mean?
works. What's that?
Final Fantasy XIV has very interesting glitches. For example, the latest one was in Stormblood. If you were sitting down on a particular location or doing another persistent emote when you entered a dungeon, then you got locked out of the game, and they couldn't work out how to fix it for a few days.
Boy.
There was also the time where fishing in a particular location would cause the entire server to crash.
Ouch.
The reason for the sitting bug came from the fact that they added. It used to be if you were in a persistent emote and you went into an instance and then you came out, you were no longer in that emote. With Stormblood, they made it so if you're persistent emote, like sitting, and you go into a dungeon and you come back out, you're still sitting. They also added swimming in Stormblood, and so there's a certain instance where you come out of it and you end up underwater, but they don't have emotes for sitting underwater, and they don't have an exception or anything programmed in. So you're sitting down, you go into the instance, you come out, and you're sitting down underwater, which is an emote that doesn't exist. So your game just you get locked out of the game.
And you get locked out, and they apologize to you and tell you to please be patient while they work on it.
Please be patient, a classic Square Enix line at this point.
We thank you for your understanding and apologize for any inconveniences this may have
Please
caused.
look forward to it.
But
TM.
generally the game is running well for all of you, though, right?
Yeah,
Very
Yes.
much so.
They
They
fix
fix
bugs
it.
very quickly.
Are you all playing on PlayStation 4, or some of you playing on PC?
But
Yeah,
we're all PC.
PC players.
All
yes.
PC. Yep.
All
Yeah.
PC. Alright, yeah, we don't need any of them console scrubs. This is a master race here of Final Fantasy
think-
Wiki editors.
SEM and the PS4 scrub. So
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
need them. There's a reason they weren't invited. Okay,
Exactly.
next thing, new bosses. Someone mentioned Omega. Can anyone go through that for me, or the other people that have no idea what they're doing right now?
Wait, so has everybody here cleared Omega?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
then we can talk freely about.
Spoilers.
So,
Yep.
Oh
so
yeah,
the
spoiler
new-
wall. Let's put it up now.
Yeah, spoiler warning here. Okay, so in the Omega raid, it's the interdimensional rift from Final Fantasy V. So the 4 bosses in the Omega raid so far are iconic-ish bosses from Final Fantasy V. You've got Catastrophe, you've got Altair Roit, you've got Halicarnassus, and motherfucking Exdeath.
Fuck Xdeath. I don't like that guy.
Tasty arrow.
Eat the fruit.
Eat the fruit. It's great though. It is pretty excellent. It's not voiced, unfortunately, but the flavor is pretty good.
Especially because, especially because the fights work exactly how they did in Final Fantasy V, effectively.
Wait, it plays like Final Fantasy V? I'm unclear on that.
No.
Not exactly, but like the way, like the attacks and just
The visuals are there's high fidelity with the visual.
It has the same general strategies as those older games, but translated to an MMO, is what you're trying to say?
That's effectively what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, Catastrophe, you get the ability to cast Float for that fight. And so you levitate to avoid Earthquake and his other attacks, but you also can cast 100 Gs to negate that. And so you have to use something that simulates the effect of Float at the appropriate times to avoid his attacks, or you will die to tentacles, and it will be full-on anime.
Top 10 anime tragedies.
It's accurate though.
Top 10 anime deaths.
Top 10 anime tragedies is what I said. Alright, but
So-
Omega, does that play like Final Fantasy V in that you just instantly get killed half the time you start that fight?
We actually haven't fought Omega yet.
Oh.
Although we're just all assuming it's going to be the last fight in the raid in like 9 months' time.
Oh, is that not out yet?
So
No.
they divide the raids into groups of 3, and every even patch is a raid patch, and every odd patch is a 24-man patch, 24-man raid. So the 24-man raid is what you're looking forward to, the return to Evilus, whereas the 8-man raid is Omega. Though, whilst we're talking about that, how have we started talking about Omega and we haven't talked about the fact that Shinryu is in this game as well?
Oh god.
Oh yeah, So Shinryu is the final boss of Stormblood, the main storyline anyway. We first see him at the end of Heaven's Ward, where some rebels just go full crazy, and then Ilberd, who is effectively the worst, all in capitals, just summons motherfucking Shinryu. And then we don't see them for a while because Omega and Shinryu have an awesome ass fight, which everybody has been waiting for literally forever. And then we see Shinryu at the end of the main story of Stormblood, where the main villain essentially merges with Shinryu, and we fight Shinryu in the motherfucking heavens. It's awesome.
It's great.
In the motherfucking heavens. So,
Yes.
Yes.
anyone got anything else to add, or should I move on to part 4?
We haven't talked about the new primals yet.
Oh, yeah, new primals.
Yes, go ahead.
The
Oh
two.
Lord, go ahead. Talk about the new primals.
If anyone wants to. I can't.
No.
Okay, so in Stormblood, there are 2 new primals. So, background information for those who don't know the deepest lore of Final Fantasy XIV. Primals are essentially deities that beast race summon out of their own fervent beliefs and essentially magical energy. Like the lizard people have Ifrit, blah 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 blah. Essentially, in Stormblood, there's 2 new beast tribes, the Kyojin and the Anata. The Kyojin are turtle people who summon Susanoo, like the Japanese god of thunder and storms and all that kind of nonsense. And he is fucking awesome. The Anata, which are like Lamias, essentially, summon Lakshmi, otherwise known as Lucky from 6. Is that the original translation?
I
That
don't.
sounds right.
It
I
would
never
not surprise
played
me.
Final Fantasy III. I'm not sure what the original one.
In the age of SNES translations, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, soon enough, those lucky people who do get a SNES Classic will be able to see the terrible original translation, but I have not.
Yes.
So,
And all of the Ted Woolsey glory.
yes. But don't let me interrupt you. You were jamming there.
Yeah, so you fight both Susanoo and Lakshmi during the main story of Stormblood. Susanoo is, well, an experience. I'll let other people go on about Susanoo because, yeah.
Susanoo is very enthusiastic about fighting you. He's got probably some of the best voice lines so far. So more recently, they've been adding voice lines to primals for them to shout during the battle. They're helpful for working out which mechanic comes next. In particular, his laugh and his great cries of "Make way" are becoming something of a meme.
Yeah,
Seize part for me alone.
when he uses his ultimate attack and you survive it, resilient souls, I salute you.
Yeah, he's just so happy. It's so weird. Most of the primals are like, well, you failed to like get zombied to me, so I'm just gonna kill you. Whereas this guy like actually is like joyful and fighting. It's great. It's beautiful. It's an experience.
Both the new primals have great personalities. So each of the primals, when they're summoned, they have some kind of guiding impulse essentially. However, a lot of the earlier ones were kind of indistinguishable. Like I think Garuda is supposed to be destruction and Ifrit is wrath, but it both turns out to be angry, I'm going to kill you now.
Thing.
Yes. Whereas in this one, Susanoo is just really happy to fight you. He's the Lord of the Rebels. And Lakshmi, on the other hand, she was summoned by someone who wanted to bring her daughter back. And their tribe thinks of her as sort of the mother of beauty. So there's a lot of come into my bosom. It actually shows that animation. It looks pretty great, actually.
Literally,
Yes, you
Sounds
are going
hot.
to. Yes. So there's a part where your character essentially dances and worships her. A lot of welcoming rather than destroying.
And if you don't worship her, you die.
Yes.
Yeah. So the flavor is excellent in Stormblood with the primals and with a lot of the main storyline quests. I think we would agree the quality of the adventure is pretty good.
My only problem with the new bosses is I think both the new extreme panels are a bit on the easy side.
Yeah, Susanoo is definitely on the easy side for an extreme primal, especially for launch anyway.
Are you all roughly
I
the
wouldn't be
same
surprised.
level, or
Yeah.
okay? What level are you
In terms
all?
of
Like RPG level, I assume it must have that, right?
Yeah.
so most of the game would be beyond the leveling content. So we've all reached levels. Then you have what's called your eye level, which is the level of your equipment. So
Sorry,
the
Uni,
moment,
you
there's not
you
much
cut
in-
out when you said what level you were for me.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Everyone's level 70 because most of the content is locked behind the max level cap. So when you go to level 70, you get all this new content, the raids and so on. So we're all the same level there. Then you've got your eye level, which is the level of your equipment. And that can change, but because it's right at the start now, there's not much to distinguish eye level for people. And then you talk about sort of the playstyle of whether you raid or not, essentially. There's no new raids at the moment, but some people are more casual than others. None of us are really hardcore players, so yeah.
Mainly because...
Welcome to the mid-core.
Yeah.
Something I kind of think should be said about difficulty is I think that a lot of the reason that the new content, the Extreme Primals and Omega, are not that difficult. Shinryu is actually pretty hard as far as final boss.
Shinryu is
go.
very hard for a
But-
boss.
I think a lot of the reason that the content is not so difficult is because they changed so much of the battle system. They want to give people a chance to adapt rather than what they did with Heaven's Word, where it's like, here, you have all these new abilities. Now go mash your face against Judgment Nisi for 2 months.
Wasn't it more like bang your head against Midas Savage, Gordius Savage for like half a year?
That was awful.
Yeah,
We
so
never
those were
speak of
Heaven
these.
Ward's raids that were notoriously difficult, and raid groups broke up. It was pretty bad. So Stormblood is so far a bit more user friendly than
They've also tried to simplify the game a fair bit in an attempt to make it more friendly for casuals and to reduce the button bloat. So part of it is that we're speaking from the perspective of people who are in the mid-core, who did raid, who cleared the fights before Echo was added in a lot of cases.
Okay.
Echo is like a stat buff so that you can clear the fights more easily. They add it after a while.
So that's the kind of Nintendo, you've lost too many times here, let me give you this golden mushroom, which means
Yes.
you can't lose.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
effectively.
much.
nice.
Yeah, gaming was a mistake, wasn't it? Anyway, should we move on to jobs? What's been
sure.
buffed and debuffed, what you like and don't like, what they've done to your favorite jobs?
Oh boy.
So we actually, so we have the both ends of the spectrum here. So I main Paladin, which has gotten many a buff in Stormblood, like an incredible amount of buffs, the best buffs. Previously, Paladin was essentially the black sheep of the tanking classes in that, like, sure, you had infinite like damage mitigation, but also you just couldn't provide much utility or like damage to fights anyway, unlike Warrior or Dark Knight. Stormblood gave the double whammy of both nerfing the shit out of Warrior and Dark Knight. It also gave Paladin a whole bunch of cool new shit, including Holy Spirit, which is just a ranged like magic attack, which is a welcome addition, on top of just some general quality of life stuff in the lower level like abilities. Like we actually have an AoE attack now.
So a brief overview of the problems with balancing. The team hasn't had that much difficulty with balancing DPS classes in the sense that all of them are viable. They don't tend to be worse versions of each other, except for some trouble with Machinist and Bard, but they fix that pretty quickly. The problem has been trying to balance the tanks and the healers. They've tried to make the tanks and the healers have different styles, but there's essentially a DPS meta where it doesn't matter what class you play. The most important thing is whether you can increase the damage of the party, because the sooner the thing dies, the fewer mechanics you have to do. The best CC is death, essentially. So Paladin was sort of envisioned as a super defensive tank, takes burdens off the healer, that sort of thing. But you didn't really need that. What you needed was for the tank to do a lot of DPS. Yeah, you do a lot of DPS. And White Mage had the same problem, where it had huge heals, better sustained heals than everyone else, but it wasn't necessary. What was necessary was that the Scholar and the Astrologian can do a whole bunch of DPS.
I thought Dragoons sucked. You said all DPS were equal. Is it just Dragoon
That's a
players?
Yeah.
Or is that
both
a meme?
now? Both now.
So Dragoons are fine now because samurais exist, and literally every samurai is an absolute shitter. Like,
This is what I meant when I said fuck Yasuo earlier. They're literally the Yasuo players of Final Fantasy XIV.
So when you initially said Dragoons suck, you were probably meaning it in the terms of the players suck. They get, movement lock, they fail, they tank the floor, they fall off everywhere. They're just bads.
Yeah, I
So
played
with our-
Overwatch. I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
These are
Yes.
Hanzo and Genji players.
Yes, exactly, basically.
Yeah.
So now in Stormblood, we welcome our new Weeb Overlords with the Samurai class, which is basically the most selfish DPS. It doesn't have any of those party buffs we talked about before that was the Heavensward meta. They just do a ton of damage. The thing is, everyone wants to play them now. Like, you probably see a whole move from Dragoons and Monks and maybe Ninjas. The Samurai, so they're the new people leveling up, getting used to playing, and somehow being off somewhere, having 0 HP, making your healers want to,
especially because samurai also, as a melee class, has casted abilities, which essentially locks you into one place.
How about
Right. So your samurai don't want to move, and they just eat stuff. So it's pretty bad. But hopefully they'll get better. I think going back to Dragoon, I don't know. I think they're better in terms of being able to do stuff, but no one cares because samurai. The end.
Dragoon has seen some nerfs. It's quite clunky to play now, apparently. The playstyle has been simplified somewhat from keeping up Blood of the Dragon in Heavenswood was something of a nightmare, I'm told. They've also been given a little bit of party utility, but at the moment we're not sure if the numbers quite work out with having a Dragoon in the party yet. It will depend a lot on the meta, because one of the things Dragoon does is it gives a piercing debuff, which is good for Dragoon itself and also your Bards and Machinists. So if the meta calls for both Bard and Machinist, as it did in Heavenswood, then we'll probably see Dragoons in raid parties. Though I should hasten to add, this is talking about speedrun methods, so this is like the top 0.1%. For everyone else, play whatever you want. It's all viable.
Yeah,
if
as
you're a
long as you're good
casual-
at your class, like, yeah.
Yeah,
most
there's no
important
super
thing-
bad class.
Hmm.
The most important thing outside of like high-end rating is whether you enjoy the job. And I do not enjoy Mini Scholar, so I switched to White Mage.
You may hear thunder, people who are actually watching this. I'm not sure if that's thunder or fireworks or possibly the anger of God that Yuanchosaan said that all units are viable. I don't know. That could have been blasphemy.
So I am also a Scholar main, and I also do not enjoy the new Scholar, but I'm wedded to my class, so I'm still playing Scholar.
Taking on for the team.
Yeah, you play what you want. Like, you know, if you're trying to be one of those clear on the first day, which, you know, is such a small percentage, there's enough classes in this game, and you can switch between them, like, if people don't
Willy-nilly.
know. Well, yeah, however you want. The leveling is not that bad. So, out of all the MMOs, it's probably the most forgiving of, like, how much do you want to change your playstyle? Do you want to dabble in something else? So, even though we go through this whole jobs getting buffed and nerfed cycle, you don't necessarily have to throw away or change your entire life based on the meta.
Some people do, but they're very
Yeah.
odd for doing that.
Well, they're tryhards, so, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Lucy,
go-
please forgive us if you're listening.
Going to the healing classes, which is my interest here. At the moment, they're kind of hilariously unbalanced because the Astrologian, which was the new job they added, its shtick is that it can do what both. And for whatever reason, they decided to keep buffing Astrologian, despite the fact that it was already quite good.
The best.
Yeah. Historically, Scholar has been the most overpowered healing class due to various reasons. It could kind of do everything. It was very good. It has a fairy which heals for it, as well as its own heal, so it could kind of do double the amount at the same time. It could DPS whilst healing, and it would heal whilst it DPS because it had a lot of damage over time abilities and shields and instant heals. So it needed a little bit of balancing, but they kind of went overboard and nerfed it in every way. So it's quite clunky to play now as well because the pet AI is not very good. And then White Mage, they added some entirely extraneous abilities, but which don't really fit the kind of normal play style of a White Mage where you want to put regeneration abilities up rather than directly healing things most of the time. But the core of its kit got buffed a bit as well, particularly its personal DPS. So White Mages are in a pretty decent place at the moment, but we're not sure, once again, whether they will have a place in the meta because utility and raid buffs triumphs overall.
Okay, I guess we're done with jobs. Anyone else have anything else to add?
No, I think we've all like explained all, like the only thing we haven't spoken about crafters and gatherers, but that is a whole mess.
I'm not
Oh,
interested
baby.
in that, but is that important?
Yeah, I don't-
Not get into
Excuse
that.
me, crafting is the real end game.
We'll be here forever. We'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we get EA on like talking about crafting, we will be here literally forever.
Wait,
Yeah, I'm hungry. I want to eat dinner. I don't care about your crafting.
wait, is EA a person or what is that?
Oh,
That's me.
Oh, sorry.
It's EA.
Oh, you have another name. You have so many names.
Maybe if you played this game, then you would be familiar with this, but you don't.
I don't play this game.
mhm.
All right. We have been moving pretty efficiently, but I say I want to hear something funny from all four of you. What is the best story you got from this new expansion?
Okay, so this is from last night actually. I was running Susanoo Extreme with 8-bit and Yoon, and so in Susanoo Extreme there's a tank swap mechanic where you have to essentially change who's got the aggro on Susanoo. So I'm main tanky and the tank swap mechanic happens. I just completely forget it is going on, eat the tank buster without even like popping any mitigation out. die like instantly on the spot, and just in voice chat, everybody's just going, excognition, the scholar ability is not a replacement for a cooldown. That is honestly like just the biggest like I've just dropped the ball moment in this new expansion.
Yes, when you see his HP go down from 45,000 to actually 0, then in retrospect it's really funny. But when you're healing it,
It's just like, oh shit.
not. Yeah.
Honestly,
so you look back. and
It's
you laugh.
better than our old paladin who did things like hit the limit break by accident instead of changing his tank stance. So you need that limit break to survive the next attack. So we just went, what? It was also our first
that
time
was a
getting
good one.
through that particular part of the fight. We were doing progression. It was a hard fight. And it was like, wow, we did it smoothly for once. Then we hear the limit break go off, and there's just silence for a bit. Then we go, Liquid? What was that? And
that
our
was kind
paladin
of-
says to us, my limit break button is next to my shield oath button.
So that was
That
like
was
his
the
Leroy
HLS
Jenkins
one, right?
moment, but totally by accident, I guess.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of
Uh,
deliberately Roy Jenkins moments.
purpose. I mean, our tanks in our raid group are basically this thing. Like the other tank, well, our former other tank, Dragon Lady, who is like Hexed, an Australian male, but in game is a Lalafell female. He likes long walks on the beach. He likes to read Skyrim erotica to us during the raid.
Oh,
He
baby.
likes to fall asleep during the middle of the raid. It's just
Both our
good.
tanks do
I'm not,
that.
I'm not saying like Dragon is me, but down in Melbourne. But Dragon is me, but living down in Melbourne.
He's a beautiful. Honestly, like the people you meet in this game, like I think earlier someone said, like the community isn't quite as good as before, but I think among MMOs, it's a pretty good community. So you find, at least on Goblin, some pretty cool people.
Oh, my favorite moment, I think, of this was I was doing Lakshmi for the first time, and I was with a bunch of friends who were pretty good raiders. Like, there was one guy who regularly hits like 95th percentile or so on FF logs, which is I probably shouldn't talk about FF logs. Basically, he's in like the top 1% of the players, and he just randomly died during one of the mechanics. And we went, "Wait, what's going on? Why did you die?" And he said, "Oh, sorry, I was too busy staring at Lakshmi's bosoms, and I got distracted."
I think we've all been there, haven't we, folks?
Well, consider the fact that when Hex beat it for the first time, he said something in the link shell like, "Watch me mom dom porn win."
Oh my god, I fucking said that, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
You did say that.
All right, I have to find
guess-
the lewdest picture of Lakshmi to put up when I put up this podcast.
Oh god.
Just
Oh,
put a picture
God.
of the Shiva EX porn guide.
I would
I'm
also
pretty sure we get banned for YouTube for that.
No, we won't. Don't worry.
I would also like to nominate what I think is the funniest dialogue option in Stormblood. So they've added a lot more dialogue options so that you can characterize your warrior of light a little bit more than nod silently, which is what you did for most of A Realm Reborn. And one of them is you're trying to decide who will be the hostages for a group of people, Aura in the steppes, and the one of the characters is staring at you and deciding that he wants a female hostage, and he says that he's looking for someone to essentially be his love interest, his moon. You can respond with the line, "I want to be your Roland Berry." Roland Berry being a strawberry, and we have no idea what it means, but it was hilarious.
Yuanchosaan, you can... Or actually, I'll be your strawberry.
Oh, thank you.
How nice.
Yes.
Game pretty much comments afterwards, "I have no idea what this means," and then he picks the other person. So you got rejected.
Yes.
Okay, two more. I need two more good things.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with the Akmorn story from when. So when the main story of Heavensward first came out, there was a lot of technical difficulties, so a lot of people just like gave up, and like put it off for a few days. So for the first time in forever, I was actually able to do things quickly because everyone else was backed up at the start, and so So Hex and I were at the final boss, Shinryu, but we didn't want to tell anyone it was Shinryu because that's huge spoilers, and I have a bit of a problem with spoilers.
A bit.
Yeah.
But Shinryu uses this certain attack called Akmorn, and Akmorn is previously been used by Bahamut and Nidhogg, who are
And Summoners.
well, okay, but the fact that Hex was being hit by Akmorn and
Talking
Hex and I
about
were
it.
talking about this in the chat is essentially a huge spoiler.
Because it's only used by, like, really powerful dragons, essentially.
So this could like completely just give away everything for the people in this chat that we were in. However, somebody thought that we were talking about Nidhogg, despite the fact that we were clearly not fighting Nidhogg. And the way we described the mechanic is nothing like the way it works with Nidhogg. But everyone's just like, oh, they're fighting Nidhogg, okay. And crisis averted. I don't know.
It was a slick avoidance of spoiler that some people in the chat who may have not gotten there yet may have picked up on.
I
And,
picked
you
up on
know,
it as well. And I was like, oh my god,
know,
Kishi, I'm just not going
yeah.
to think about this
Yeah,
anymore
but
because it's probably a
tried.
main story
Yeah.
quest.
They
Spoiler.
tried. They tried for us, you know.
We tried.
Kishi
I'm
then
sorry.
spoiled all of Omega for me, essentially. He's bad.
it's okay. I'm
It's
a
okay.
resident fuck up.
We're,
And as
we're
long as
all
I'm
friends.
not dying to bees or using limit break on random nothingness, I think we're okay.
Oh my god, but that bee story is probably one of my favorites, actually.
Okay,
Kishi, do you want to tell the bee story?
I want to hear the bee story. This has been mentioned in myth and
Oh, shit.
legend.
Or should I tell the bee story?
You can tell the bee story.
Alright, so
I
we're
don't
running
wanna
through
tell
this dungeon, and in this dungeon there's this really long, what you call a pull that you can do, where instead of stopping at the barrier, everyone focuses on the barrier and gets through it. The problem, however, is that some of the enemies that you pull along this, if they don't get killed in time, they will do a move called Final Sting, which will basically murder the tank. While they have about 20 enemies with them. So if the tank dies, then everyone else dies. So we're doing this, and we get to the barrier, and if you get through the barrier, then you don't have to kill through any enemies. You just go into the boss room. And I say, Catuse, you need to go and kill the enemies. And he said, but the barrier, and he said, but my DPS, because if you hit more enemies, you do more DPS. I said, no, but if
But
you
the
don't do
barrier.
this, then we will all die. And he said, but my DPS. And then Hex died because he got final stung to death. And I said, because there's final sting. And everyone else went, oh. So I raised Hex and I got through the barrier and both our DPS died. That's Catuse and 8-Bit here. So all of the enemies are now waiting outside the barrier, watching us hungrily, whilst our two DPS are looking at them going, how do we get through this? They're all aggroed on me, so they ignored 8-Bit as he goes through the barrier. Catuse, for some godforsaken reason, decides that he should start hitting them.
Because my DPS.
He didn't. He was going, well, they're aggroed on EA, so therefore, if I hit them, I can kill them without them paying attention to me. When you hit things, you generate aggro. So,
Yeah.
of course, all the things started looking at him and he died. At this point, we
Aw.
went, and they will continue being aggroed on him, so he can't get through now. So at this point, we just did the boss without him.
Yeah, like F it, you know. The monk can have his DPS. If you punch bees, they'll sting you back. TLDR.
Yeah.
And that's
in my
how-
defense, I want to say that I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on because it was 1 in the morning and I was tired, and I thought
You thought?
You thought?
You
What was
thought
I
that
thinking?
death by 20 bees was a good idea.
no, I thought that the reason that they weren't aggroing onto 8-Bit is because it was bugged and not because it was healer aggro. I thought I don't know why I didn't, because obviously they didn't have aggro on Hex, so who else would they aggro on?
Well, of course it was
So
bugged. You were
I-
dealing with bees.
It was really funny. So I thought it was bugged and I could just attack them without anything happening, but I was wrong.
Okay, 8-Bit.
And then he got neglected and left behind.
8-Bit, I have not heard your
Mhm.
story yet, I don't think. I want something
My story
from you.
was My story was Dragon Lady and his Skyrim erotica and
Oh,
his,
okay.
and
I believe this is a family video, so we cannot go any further with that story.
Yes,
But whatever
I
you
think
at
the
home
bees are a
imagine,
good.
yeah, they're
The
good.
bees are a good fitting end to our story time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The bees.
Just for one last final category, I'm going to give you all the floor to possibly convince me to play Final Fantasy XIV, even though you will fail at this option, because it is impossible. I don't want to play Final Fantasy XIV, as much fun as it sounds.
Okay, why don't you want to play Final Fantasy XIV?
I don't want to play Final Fantasy XIV because I'm busy. The simplest thing would be I work and I play games, but I also work. So I don't know where I'd be able to fit a giant social multiplayer RPG in my already busy schedule of various anti-sociality and watching anime, but also working.
What time investment do you think would be worth it to you? Like, if you could spend an amount of time in this game per week, and that would be sufficient for you, how much would you put in?
I
If you
don't
had it.
know, like 34 seconds.
Very unfortunate.
Just a screenshot of Lakshmi, and a Susanoo, voice clip. That's all you need.
Pretty much, yeah. That'd be good for me. I mean, I have played Final Fantasy XIV before. I actually played a demo of it at, I think it was E3.
E3.
Yeah, it was E3. I beat Leviathan as a Dragoon, along with some people that actually knew what they were doing. And, yeah, it's alright. I mean, it's no Overwatch. Simple as
that was Leviathan hard mode. It was a nerfed version of Leviathan hard mode, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it's an MMO. It's not something you can pick up like Overwatch, spend like 20, 15 minutes in a match, and then like be satisfied. Like, you can do that in FF14, but there is some build-up. If you have people willing to play with you, which all four of us have been fortunate enough to do so. The community aspect of it is great. So if you're looking for something like that, I mean, Final Fantasy XIV, like we said, you switch between whatever job you want. It's flexible enough that if you have flexible hours for it, you'll find something that you like, in my opinion.
I mean, you say you have a job. I'm a medical student who lives in Australia. My time zones line up with literally no one, and I'm still playing this game. So, yeah.
I think it might be more me than the game.
It sounds to me like it has to beat all the other games that you're playing, Blue. And considering that like you write about games and like you are invested in a lot of like single player games, then yeah, that might be. It's not a super. I mean, it is. I guess. It is a AAA title, I guess, but it's not like this new thing.
Yeah, this is kind of Square Enix's big release this year. This and Final Fantasy XII, which. By the way, if you're interested in hearing us talk about Final Fantasy XII, tune in. That will probably be the next one. As a matter of fact, it will be the next one of these. Yeah.
Isn't that like next week?
It could be next week, for all we know. And since we are now nearing coming attractions, I guess, does anyone have anything else they need to add on Final Fantasy XIV, Stormblood, A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Gate, whatever else this thing's called, before we finally close the book on Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood?
I'd like to add that it's probably the most Final Fantasy that's come out for a long time. I like the fact that each of the expansions is doing something new in terms of what the Final Fantasy series means. So in The Realm Reborn, it was very much classical Final Fantasy. You've got crystals, you've got primal summons, you're the warrior of light, you're going to fight these things, blah, 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 blah. Then in Final Fantasy, in Heavenswood, it was almost there were two kind of parts to it. There was a kind of Final Fantasy tactics style, politics and long war, and our religion is based on a lie, things like that. And then it had also, you are adventuring with like a small ragtag group of people, and you are learning how to become friends and to know about each other and to defeat evil by using our individual strengths. And now we've got to Stormblood, and the storyline is all about we are liberating the world empire. So you see the oppression of the Galleons and what they've done to it, and you in all these new regions talking to people whose lives have been destroyed by the Empire, and there's the triumph of liberating these people. It's very good. So we've gone through most of the what are the main kind of Final Fantasy story beats, and we've got so many references to each of the games. It really feels like a Final Fantasy game in a way that 13 and 15 have not.
Yes. If you like nostalgia, this is probably the more recent game for you.
Well, that and World of Final Fantasy.
Essentially,
that out.
yeah.
World of Final Fantasy is a good
like,
game.
Effectively, as a whole, FF14 feels a lot like FF12, but a lot more lighthearted, like in terms of storyline, anyway.
Lighthearted Stormblood?
Oh, Stormblood is not lighthearted, but like, yeah.
I mean, Heavenswood wasn't exactly lighthearted as well, since it was like, oh, guess what? You just fought like 100 and something year war where everything was completely meaningless.
Yeah.
And a lie.
And
The
also
story's
the
great.
world
Play
ended
it.
once at least. Yeah, didn't it? Bahamut blew up the entire thing.
It's ended 7 times.
Okay.
Yes. The
Yeah.
Umbral Calamities.
Just like real
For
life.
all of the ridiculous memes, it's an incredibly dark story.
Yeah.
But there's only one thing I want to say, which is that the Ruby Sea is great because it's one of the new locations. The Ruby Sea is great because it proves that Star Wars Episode 1 didn't have to be terrible. And also it has the best line in the game, said by an NPC there. That boy isn't buoyant.
Or based at Alisay.
The localization team is basically the greats. Like,
They're
it's
meme
excellent.
lords.
It's beautiful. If you're a filthy meme lord, play this game. The end.
Okay. So that is 4 glowing recommendations from your admins at the Final Fantasy Wiki, powered by Wikia, powered by fandom, powered by whatever. And one, I guess...
Powered by a Forsaken Child.
Yes, one standout by somebody that just doesn't deserve this game. So thank you very much for listening. We are, again, the Final Fantasy Wiki. Follow us on Twitter, like us on YouTube, Facebook, whatever the hell Instagram is. I think we might be there too. I don't know. Does anyone?
I don't think we're on Instagram, but
yeah,
but
all
do
those other
follow us
things.
on Twitter because
Yeah.
we have all of the bad FF14 memes there.
Yes. So thank you all for listening, and we will be back at some point.